And I was on mute, but I caught myself this time. Welcome to Through a Glass Darkly Radio. You're listening to us on United Public Radio. And the intro song was Mark of the Doomslayer by Karl Casey at White Bat Audio. All right. Sorry I was a few minutes late today. I kind of got distracted on X. I'm in a place right now where like I can't believe once you see how the world you start to see how the world works, you can't unsee it, and it will drive you absolutely crazy. So, and I don't want to talk too much about this because I don't want to alienate anybody, but I've never seen so many armchair generals in my life. Like, I literally have friends who were ripped apart by suicide bombs or by car bombs in Iraq. Okay, like, and I have several friends like that. I have several friends who served and fought in what ultimately turned out to be a pointless war, where all the benefits only accrued to one nation, and that nation wasn't us. So when I see people, I mean, it's just like there's one country that basically ran across the street, threw a brick inside his neighbor's house, then ran back inside his house, and then his neighbor came over with a baseball bat, and the neighbor's like pointing at you and saying, who's like the big mayor of the town or whatever, and is saying, "He attacked me! He attacked me!" Like it doesn't work anymore, Israel. It doesn't work anymore. Okay? Look, got nothing against you, but it's time for you to fight your own wars. And every time I see Americans like, I'm an evangelical and I support Israel. Okay, that's good. Why don't you go over to your fucking recruiter and sign up and cash your body out and be prepared to fight the war? Otherwise, shut the fuck up. Okay? Those of us who have served, we're tired of this stuff. We're tired of it. It's not our war, not our fight. And all the arguments that I'm seeing, keep in mind that I did my master's thesis on this topic, and I advocated for this to happen 20 years ago. 20 years ago. And you can look it up. Type in my name, Sean Hazlett, Iran, and you will find my master's thesis. It's on the Belfer site at Harvard University, and you can read it. Okay? I advocated for the United States to do it because of the logistical footprint required the U.S. would only be capable of it. And that's when we had hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the region to accomplish it. Now we don't. So this country, Israel, picks a fight. They have 6 million people. The Iranians have 90 million. Okay? There's only one way that this ends. The United States ends up getting involved. They're going to drag us right into this mess. And while they drag us into this mess, it's going to further degrade our capabilities vis-a-vis China and Russia. It will give China a pretext to attack Taiwan while we're completely distracted. We can't even move aircraft carriers to closer than Sicily into the region. Otherwise, we're within range of Iranian hypersonic missiles. So, and the way that Israel is acting like a mad dog in the region kind of convinces me maybe Iran should have nuclear weapons, because if they did, Israel wouldn't be attacking random countries. Not random, but look, the Iranians ain't the good guys, and I don't feel sorry for Iran. But when I see Israelis regularly destroying and bombing infrastructure in Gaza, and then suddenly when the Iranians do it to them, they're like, oh my God, they're attacking civilian targets. Bro, walk down the street, 10 feet, and look at what you're doing in that other area. Like, it's just the hypocrisy is just completely outrageous. And it's just this propaganda. The other thing is we have our politicians. They're all bought and paid for by the Israeli lobby. So as a result, they're going to pull us into war, people, just so you know. So when the draft comes and we have to send people to the freaking Iranian front, I didn't call for it. I may have called for it in 2006, but a lot has changed since then. In 2006, they were 18 months away from a bomb, people. Well, guess what? It's 20 years later and they don't have a bomb. So I'm just tired of this. And I don't mean this to be about this, this thing, but it's just like, I just see the propaganda engine rolling and rolling and rolling. X is starting to censor Iranian accounts right now. And look, Iranian accounts are spewing nothing but propaganda, just like Israeli accounts, just like all the congressmen who've been instructed to follow their little script, like good little slaves. So I think a huge percentage of the American people, like given our fiscal and financial burden right now with $36 trillion of debt, this is not something that is in America's vital national interests. It's just not. It's just not. And we didn't randomly, we didn't start the attack. Israel attacked its neighbor. Okay. Now there's other stuff that happened before then, but it's always been tit for tat between those two, right? They can point to October 7th, but this stuff started long before October 7th. So I'm not taking a side. I just don't support America going into yet another wasteful war, destroying, that tens of thousands of American lives for what? The benefit only accrues to one nation state, and it ain't us. So that's where I stand. Very unlikely that I will change my mind. And by the way, like, I'm not a fan of clearly not a fan of Hamas. I hope they get wiped out. But all I'm saying is, if you're going to target civilians, then when the enemy targets your civilians, don't whine and say they're targeting our civilians. And you did the same thing to the Palestinians. So you can't expect your enemies to fight, more nobly than you're fighting, right? You set the tone. So, and then they say they're not targeting civilians. What do you think nuclear scientists are? You think they're like military guys? They're also civilians, okay? It's just the propaganda. It's driving me insane. I better check the comments to make sure that I am modulated and I'm not talking to the wrong audience. So let's see. All right. The Anunnaki related to the Illuminati? Nope, definitely not. All right, let's see. Again, sorry for the political thing, but 11/11. There we go. But it's geopolitical, and this is a geopolitical channel. Hey, Joe, good to see you, man. Yes, this will cause World War III because it's going to get us distracted in a war that has nothing to do with us, and then it'll give. Look, the Israelis bombed Iranian oil assets. So what's the effect of that going to be? Well, in 2 to 3 months, we're going to have a recession, people, because oil price is going to rise. The cost of doing business is going to increase, and people are going to stop, purchasing because the gas is too expensive. Yeah, Cynthia, you're 100% right. When the scales are gone from your eyes, it is a lonely road. Yeah, I'm going to try to keep it away from person. And here's the thing, like, until 3 years ago, I was a big fan of Israel. I believed in everything, and then you start to ask yourself questions, and it's just, yeah, that's the other thing. Like, anyway, I gotta tone it down a little bit, but I think that's what's going to happen, Spider-Butt. But they have to start with a draft first. But if they even attempt a draft, there'll be 20 million veterans, the majority of whom will oppose this, because it's not our fight. Yeah, I don't know if anybody needs nukes, but what it's taught me is that the last person who needs nukes is Israel. All right, I'm gonna. Hey, good evening, Woo Riders TG. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, I shouldn't go on these rants, but like, I just see the hypocrisy, and it is driving me nuts. So Woo Riders DG saying, what do you see America's involvement will be in the Israel-Iran conflict? Well, what I think, I'm going to leave this up so I know where I am in the comments. I think American politicians are so corrupt. I think there's only 2 US politicians who do not receive money from AIPAC, which is Israel's basically illegal lobby in the United States, and that's, Massey and, Rand Paul. So, I think I mean, again, I did an informal poll on, uh, X, and, you know, not very statistically significant, maybe 30 people last time I checked. 90% of the people who responded were against it, were against direct US direct involvement, and 10% were for it. Okay. But in terms of what American involvement would be, I would not be surprised if um, a team from Delta or like a Saber squadron were already in Iran right now because they're a plausibly deniable organization. I think I think Trump knows that he can't drag the American people in. So I think there are several things that can happen that can force our involvement. If the Iranians are not strategic and are not smart, they will block the Strait of Hormuz. If they do that, American involvement is 100% because there's a huge percentage of the world's spare capacity that will go through that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. It'll cause oil prices per barrel to skyrocket. It will be a boon to the Russians, who will be able to, you know, um, increasingly fund their war in Ukraine and probably push them over to the top to just win that war. Um, it will again. It will exacerbate the recession that Israel probably already caused from bombing Iran's oil and gas assets. Again, we'll see how that goes, but I think it'll start surreptitiously or in secret or covertly, which it probably already has. And then I think the way it'll play out is it's much cheaper for Iran to fling ballistic missiles into Tel Aviv than it is for Israel to stop those missiles. So what'll happen is you'll see the state-sponsored propaganda campaign showing Israeli women and children day after day after day after day after day. And the Iranians will have more and more of these missiles. And it's not like they're targeting civilian areas. They don't have the same precision that the Israelis do, but they are targeting military targets. Those military targets just happen to be in highly urban areas in Israel. So you'll see this like excessive propaganda campaign to try to get Americans into it. It will be persuasive to many Americans, but some will kind of see it for what it is. And then if the Strait of Hormuz thing doesn't happen, right, you'll just see this, day after day dynamic. And then what will eventually happen is there will be a false flag in the United States conducted either by us or by the Israelis. Um, the way you will know that it is not the US or that it is not the Israelis, I can't speak for the US, is if it's like like Israeli embassy or a Jewish synagogue or something like that. If that happens, then it's probably not Mossad, but you still can't rule out, a U.S. intelligence element because you have to understand that every congressman, save 2, and maybe 3, I saw Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of talk against this war, but they're all funded by AIPAC. So they're going to have enormous pressure to back another stupid war. My guess would be initially it would involve a strategic bombing campaign. I don't think we'll get to the point where there's boots on the ground. But if we start bombing the Iranians with our assets, you can expect a Hezbollah summer, right? Where we open this country up to domestic state-sponsored terrorism. And the last administration didn't help by admitting 20 million people, right? Many of them will be our IRGC operatives and things like that. So I hope we're not that stupid, but I have no faith in our elites. I think they're all compromised. There's a reason you haven't seen the Epstein tapes come out, because all our elites are compromised by either the CIA, DIA, or Mossad, most likely Mossad. So whether we like this or not, it's going to be rammed right up our assholes. So all you can do is speak out, and that's about all you can do. Again, I want to be very clear. I don't care what happens to Israel. I don't care what happens to Iran. They are not. Neither of them are in our vital national interest. We are. But someone who would care is China. China receives a massive amount of oil and gas from that region, and at some point that might draw them in if Iran gets pummeled a little bit too much, and the Chinese are going to have an incentive to supply Iran with replacement weapons, expertise, and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, I see that, I mean, Israel's plan could never work by itself without Daddy USA coming in and helping. I really wish that we didn't have to get involved, or not even have to. We don't have to get involved. I really wish that we don't get involved, but our system is so fundamentally corrupt and messed up that we will. I mean, it's obvious as day to me. So and it's just sad. It really angers me. Like, just seeing the propaganda, and it's so, like, it's just, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Anyway, I'm like way off topic here. So let me just go through some more comments, and hopefully not. Oh boy. Fast Mama Jam is saying a few of my psychic friends got rid of crypto. Future Forecasting Group had a show about it. I got a story about that too. So Fred writes, nuclear scientists in Iran have been murdered for over a decade. I was in the room when that decision was made. So I did my master's thesis for on Iran's nuclear program. It was called Plan B for Iran's nuclear program. There were two options. There was coercion, kind of, basically one of the options was a strategic bombing campaign, and then there was strategic adjustment. What would you have to do if Iran got the bomb? And we had my thesis advisor decided for the Harvard Stanford Preventive Defense Project, which he chaired, he decided to kind of use my master's thesis as a jumping off point for a meeting he had that summer in 2006, I think, with some heavy hitters on the Iran topic. So like General Shalikashvili was on there, like, via Zoom. Billy Crystal, the neoconservative kind of head of the Weekly Standard. Vali Nasser, I don't know if anybody knows who that is really, but he's an Iranian expert. Patrick Clausen, a number of people like that. And we were talking about one of the options, which is this strategic bombing campaign. And this guy, who was a former UN weapons inspector, which is kind of weird that he was even there. We were talking about, like, you would probably want to bomb at night, and, because of we own the night and all that good stuff. And this guy just spoke up, and he's like, I can't remember his name, but you probably would know it, and it would surprise you. I suspect he was like CIA or DIA all along. But he comes out and just said, well, if we're going to bomb like their nuclear facilities, we should bomb during the day. And everybody kind of looked at him like, what the F? Right? Like, why would we ever do that? And, Ash Carter very politely said, oh, that's interesting. Why would you say that? And Ash Carter, for folks who don't know, ultimately became Obama's Secretary of Defense. And this gentleman said to kill their scientists. If you're worried about them reconstituting their program, that's the quickest way to kill their scientists. 2 years later, we had people on motorcycles, or somebody had people on motorcycles sticking sticky bomb to nuclear scientists' windows. It is bizarre how decisions are made and how these things happen. But I was in the room. That might not have been the first time it was raised, but that was the first time I ever heard it in a private forum at the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. And, kind of sometime in 2006, maybe April, May. I can't remember when, but this stuff is crazy stuff. So anyway, um, yeah, yep, oh yeah, yeah. Fast Mama John saying Ian Carroll was in the Julian Julia. So some crazy nuke stories about Israel and FJK times. All right, or JFK times. Hey, spiritual ascension. Yeah, yeah. It also can't be good. They're blasting each other's nuclear plants. Yeah, I wonder why. I saw his argument, and it's just like it was not for someone who runs a hedge fund. He should be smarter than that, but he's not. Thank you, Joe. Spiritual Ascension's writing, have Americans always known their tax-paying dollars go to supporting Israel? And there's yes, they have. They have. Absolutely. And Jolly is writing, Sean, more than 8. And by the way, and Jolly used to work for the Defense Intelligence Agency, so she knows more about what she's talking about, far more than I do. So she writes, Sean, more than 80% of the U.S. foreign aid budget goes to Israel, and we gave them billions of dollars for Iron Dome. And to your point, Angeli, that's why there's folly in all this, because they're going to run out of interceptors before Iran runs out of ballistic missiles. Interceptors are far more expensive, and they know that. And anyway, it's so frustrating to watch all of this. Yeah, so Fast Mama Jama is saying nuclear tech is old and Iranians are too smart. Mexico has a bugosphere and the Universidad Autónoma de Mexico in anti-gravity. Okay. John Kurtz writes about the topic that we're supposed to be talking about. So thank you, John. We'll get to it. I just need to get through the initial foray of comments. John Kurtz writes, maybe off topic. No, you're not, man. I'm off topic. I'm way off topic. Some Anunnaki not too fond of humans, and neither are the Illuminati who are steering these wars. Yeah, or the Bilderberg Group. Marples writes, can anyone really win two front wars? We did in World War II, but that's the last time. Yeah, I'm not taking sides in this one. In the past, I would have taken Israel's side, but they're behaving too much like a rabid dog for me to even remotely see their point of view at this point. I mean, it's just like they pick a fight with Iran, and then they whine when civilians die when Iran rightly defends itself. It's just it's like, and after they did the exact same thing to people living in Gaza. Like it's surreal. I can't. The hypocrisy is so like it's driving me like I'm losing my mind because of the hypocrisy, and I shouldn't. But it's just, yeah, it's just anyway. Like, and I feel bad for the Israeli people. Like, they have a sociopath running their government. I feel bad for the Iranians who are suffering from this, from like these nuclear scientists who just happen to study the wrong subject and get murdered by the Mossad. Like, it's just like, yeah. I mean, they're all corrupt, every single one of them. All right. Now I'm going to get started with what I actually promised we would talk about. But I had to get that off my chest because that's why I was late. I was just writing like, here's a rational argument about why this makes no sense from vital U.S. national interests at all. None. So, because I'm tired of hearing this nuclear non-proliferation, argument. Like, Apparently, I don't know. I haven't seen it in writing, as somebody told me, so I got to be careful. But we've been saying that for 3 decades that like Iran's nuclear weapon was just around the corner, and still to this day they don't have it. So, uh, uh, Sean, where do you rank the Anunnaki knuckleheads, aka the Anunnaki, on the UFO graph of probability? Are these cats something we got to worry about? I would say 0.0 or sorry 0.3% chance. Okay. Marple's asking, where's Anunnaki? Yeah, good point. Let's get started. That's my prompt to actually cover what I promised to cover. All right. So here we go. Here we go. Again, I generate the prompt. I think about what I want to talk about. AI writes the script. If you're okay with that, I understand. I don't do this for any of my other content. I don't do it for my short stories or books. But because of time constraints, I do it for the radio show. If you don't like it, I totally understand. If you're entertained by it, stay on. But again, this channel is about truth. I'm honest to a fault, and this is something I'm always going to say. Okay, here we go. Anunnaki unveiled ancient gods, alien ancestors, and the shapers of human destiny. Okay, today we're going to exploring one of the most enduring and controversial legends, bridging mythology and extraterrestrial theory, the Anunnaki. These mysterious figures first appear in the clay tablets of ancient Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. But in modern times, they've been reinterpreted as otherworldly beings who may have sparked human origins. Were the Anunnaki merely mythic deities, ancient astronauts from a distant planet, or something in between? This episode will journey through historical records, speculative theories, and esoteric accounts to unravel the Anunnaki's alleged roles in human creation, advanced technology, genetic engineering, planetary colonization, and even the governing of early civilizations. Along the way, we'll meet iconic figures like Enki, Enlil, and Anu, chart a timeline from Sumerian antiquity today, and touch on how this saga connects with other non-human intelligences, from reptilian conspiracies to Nordic alien guardians. Buckle up for a time-traveling tale that weaves fact, myth, and conjecture, with careful fact-checking and source quotes so you know what's what. All right, let's dive in. Ancient Mesopotamian origins of the Anunnaki. To understand the Anunnaki, we begin in ancient Sumer, or modern-day Iraq, around 4000 to 2500 BCE. The term Anunnaki, Sumerian for princely seed, or perhaps those who from heaven came to earth, referred to a class of gods in the Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian, and Babylonian pantheon. Rather than a single deity, the Anunnaki were a group of divine beings, essentially the higher gods in the Mesopotamian hierarchy, believed to be offspring of the sky father Anu. Ancient texts list gods such as Enlil, lord of air and earth, Enki, lord of water, wisdom, and creation, Ninhursag, earth craft goddess, Nana, moon, Utu or Shamash, sun, and Inanna or Ishtar, love, war, among the Anunnaki. Enlil, the air god who separated heaven and earth, was especially prominent as a leader of the Anunnaki. Importantly, Mesopotamian sources depict the Anunnaki in various lights. In early Sumerian myths, the Anunnaki were celestial and decreed the fates of humans, showing up at gatherings to render judgments. For instance, in the myth Enki and the World Order, they are assigned to determine human destinies. By contrast, later Babylonian texts sometimes cast the Anunnaki as chthonic underworld judges. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, they appear as judges of the dead, and in the Descent of Inanna, a council of Anunnaki in the underworld passes judgment on the overambitious goddess Inanna. This dual portrayal, heavenly adjudicators and netherworld judges, suggests the term evolved over time or was applied to different tiers of gods in different contexts. What's consistent is that ancient Mesopotamians did not see the Anunnaki as aliens, but as holy powers woven into the fabric of the world. Each major god had its own cult and temple. The Anunnaki weren't worshipped as a group. They featured in creation epics and royal prayers rather than being a unified religion. For example, in the Babylonian Imuna Elish creation epic, the chief god Marduk assigned 600 Anunnaki to stations in heaven and on earth, essentially staffing the cosmos with divine administrators. Humanity's creation and myth, and an early genetic twist. One Mesopotamian story in particular stands out when we talk about the Anunnaki, the creation of mankind. There it is again, that humankind bullshit word. In the Atrahasis epic, an Akkadian myth dating to approximately 1700 BCE, the stage is set with lesser gods toiling on earth and eventually rebelling due to hard labor. The greater gods, identified with the Anunnaki, convene to find a solution. The goddess of birth, known as Nintu or Mami, is instructed to create a human being that will bear the oak, the task of the gods, taking over the toil. How will humans be made? The text describes a striking procedure. Let one god be slaughtered, then let the gods be cleansed by immersion. Let Nintu mix clay with his flesh and blood. Let the same god and man be thoroughly mixed in the clay. And so it is done. A god is sacrificed, and clay is mixed with divine blood and flesh to form mankind. The resulting humans carry the spirit of the slain god so that a part of the divine remains with them. The ancient tale is essentially a mythic recipe for Homo sapiens, combining earthly clay with the essence of a god. Scholars interpret this symbolically, but it's easy to see why modern theorists latched onto this as a hint of genetic engineering. The mixing of blood as if splicing DNA. Indeed, in Mesopotamian myth, humans were literally created to be laborers for the gods, taking over dredging irrigation canals and digging in the soil so the junior gods could rest. The Atrahasis even describes the gods' labor as excessive drudgery before humans were made to pick up the workload. We'll revisit this story through a modern lens shortly, but first let's introduce the main divine actors because their personalities and myth set the stage for later speculative interpretations. Anu, or An, the Sky Father, king of the gods, dwelling in the heavens. He's somewhat aloof in myth, delegating affairs of the earth to his offspring. The word Anunnaki literally means offspring of Anu. Enlil, son of Anu, god of air, wind, and authority. Anu was granted the earth domain after he separated heaven and earth. In myths, he can be harsh. At one point, he sends a cataclysmic flood to wipe out noisy mankind. Sound familiar? Sumerian texts portray Enlil as patron of kings and enforcer of divine order. He's the one who approved early rulers. Enki, or Ea, another son of Anu, god of water, wisdom, crafts, and creation, a brilliant tinkerer who often helps humans. Enki is the hero of the Atrahasis story. He devises the plan to create humans to relieve the gods' toil. Later, when Enlil's flood threatens humanity, Enki surreptitiously warns the righteous man, Atrahasis Utnapishtim, to build a boat. So yeah, Utnapishtim, to build a boat. In essence, Enki is humanity's advocate in several myths, a benevolent scientist figure. Ninhursag, or Ninma, or Mami, the mother goddess, associated with earth and midwifery. She actually carries out the mixing of clay and divine essence to birth mankind. In one Sumerian tale, Enki and Ninhursag also team up to produce various creatures and beings, further underscoring a role in biological creation. Marduk, a later addition in the Babylonian era, not originally an Anunnaki and Sumerian tradition, but became chief god of Babylon. In Enuma Elish, Marduk recruits 600 Anunnaki as mentioned earlier. Some later alternative histories equate Marduk with a rebellious Anunnaki leader, but academically, he's a distinct national god who absorbs the older pantheon. Inannu/Ishtar is the granddaughter of Anu, a prominent goddess of love, fertility, and war. While part of the pantheon, she's not typically listed among the Anunnaki in myth texts, but in Sitchin-type narratives, she sometimes appears as a feisty Anunnaki princess and is linked to planet Venus. With the cast introduced and the ancient context set, we have humans created as servants of divine masters and gods who take an active hand in human affairs, granting kingship, sending floods, etc. The Mesopotamians explain their world through these stories, but 20th century theorists would soon ask, what if these stories were true historical accounts, misinterpreted as myth? Enter Zecharia Sitchin. All right, I'm going to take a brief... We're already at 49 minutes. That was a long rant. Okay. Modern speculative interpretations. Zecharia Sitchin's ancient astronaut theory. In 1967, Azerbaijani-American author Zecharia Sitchin published The 12th Planet, unleashing an idea that would fire the imaginations of conspiracy theorists and UFO enthusiasts for decades. Sitchin's bold claim that the Anunnaki were not figments of belief, but flesh and blood extraterrestrials who visited Earth in antiquity. He asserted that ancient Sumerian tablets, if read literally, chronicle the arrival of astronauts from a planet called Nibiru, sometimes dubbed Planet X, or Planet 10, maybe, and that these beings kickstarted civilization and humanity itself in Mesopotamia. Here are the core tenets of Sitchin's narrative, which he expanded across a series of books known as the Earth Chronicles. Planet Nibiru and the 12th Planet Thesis. Sitchin interpreted Mesopotamian astronomy to argue there's an additional planet in our solar system, Nibiru, with a 3,600-year elongated orbit around the sun. He identified Nibiru with a mysterious 12th planet known to the Sumerians, counting the sun, moon, and 9 planets. He considered Pluto a planet, to get 12 bodies. According to Sitchin, Nibiru was the home of a technologically advanced race of intelligent beings who are human-like but bigger and live extremely long lifespans. These are the Anunnaki of myth, arriving on Earth roughly 450,000 years ago, when Nibiru's orbit brought it near our inner solar system. Their motives, apparently, according to Sitchin, were gold mining and atmospheric repair. Why come to Earth? In Sitchin's tale, it wasn't to bless humanity. Earth had natural resources, especially gold, that the Nibiruans needed. He claimed their planet's atmosphere was failing, and finely powdered gold could be used to repair it. A speculative concept, but it's the given motive. Thus, the first Anunnaki came as miners and engineers, touched down in the Middle East, then quickly focusing on gold-rich regions like Africa. In fringe lore, you'll often hear that the Anunnaki came to mine gold. That comes straight from Sitchin's reading of Sumerian records. Indeed, he suggests the Anunnaki in Sumerian literally meant those who from heaven to earth come, essentially indicating space travelers. Colonists and laborers, the Ijiji revolt. Sitchin painted a picture of an extraterrestrial colonial expedition. The Anunnaki leadership, heavenly commanders under Anu, initially did the mining themselves with a workforce of hundreds of their own. After thousands of years, the miners, called Ijiji, a term actually used in Akkadian myth for younger gods, mutinied, just as in the Atrahasis myth, complaining the work was too hard. In Sitchin's version, the crisis forced the Anunnaki to find a new solution for labor, and that solution was us. Genetic engineering, creating Homo sapiens. Here is where ancient myth and modern scientific fiction meet, or modern science fiction meet. According to Sitchin, Enki, the Anunnaki chief scientist, mirroring his mythic role as god of wisdom and creation, proposed genetically engineering a worker race to replace the rebel Ijiji. The plan, cross Anunnaki DNA with a native Earth species to create a hybrid capable of understanding orders but physically suited to Earth's environment. The tale closely follows the Atrahasis account, but with a high-tech twist. Instead of a literal god's blood and clay, Sitchin envisioned laboratory mixing of extraterrestrial genes with those of Homo erectus, an early human ancestor. The result, Homo sapiens, us, as a designed slave species. In his book, Sitchin even identifies the first successful hybrid, a male called Adamu, created in Eden, which he reads as a Sumerian locale, Eden, meaning plain, in Africa, to toil in the gold mines. If this sounds like the biblical Adam in the Garden of Eden, that's no coincidence. Sitchin often pointed out parallels between Sumerian and biblical tales. In fact, he asserted that the Nephilim of Genesis, the sons of God who interbred with humans, were the Anunnaki by another name. Civilization and kingship. Having produced humanity as a workforce, the Anunnaki eventually transitioned from direct labor, using humans to run things. Sitchin claims the ancient inscriptions say the gods set up human civilization in Sumer under their tutelage. The Sumerian city of Eridu, for instance, was said to be Enki's home base. Sitchin speculated it was one of the first settlement sites. He notes that after the Great Flood, more on that soon, the gods lowered kingship from heaven, meaning they installed human rulers to act as intermediaries between Anunnaki and people. This was, in his view, the origin of the divine right of kings. Kings were part Anunnaki or chosen by them, bridging the two species. Sumer's king lists, which credit absurdly long reigns to early kings, are interpreted as literal and a sign that some early rulers might have been demigods or hybrid offspring of Anunnaki. In this narrative, the Anunnaki taught humans agriculture, architecture, writing, astronomy, law, and so forth, essentially jump-starting every ancient civilization. We see echoes of this concept in many ancient astronaut theories. For instance, the Egyptians or Mayans got help from star gods. The Great Flood. Sitchin's story dramatically incorporates the Mesopotamian flood myth, the one with a Noah-like survivor. He suggests that around 11,000 to 10 BCE, as the last ice age ended, Nibiru's periodic approach caused catastrophic earth changes. Polar ice caps slip, causing a massive deluge across the globe, which corresponds to the global flood in many myths. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki Council knew this was coming. Enlil, who in the Atrahasis myth had grown frustrated with human overpopulation and noise, decided to let humanity perish in the flood. Compassionate Enki defied the decision by instructing one human, variously called Zayasudra, Utnapishtim, or Noah in different accounts, to build an ark. When the flood subsided, the Anunnaki grudgingly allowed the survival of humans and even helped rebuild. This marks a turning point. After the deluge, the Anunnaki divvied up the earth among themselves and openly ruled the emerging human societies as god kings for a time. Sitchin speculates this era lasted for millennia, but eventually led to feuds among the Anunnaki factions. Then there's the Wars of Gods and Departure. Here the tale gets truly sci-fi. Sitchin wrote that as the Anunnaki's human populations and domains grew, rivalries flared between key leaders, notably between Enki's claim and Enlil's claim and their children. He cited ancient texts like the Lament for Ur to propose that around 2000 BCE, a war broke out between these factions. The war culminated in the use of horrific weapons, essentially nuclear bombs, that obliterated the cities of Sumer. In Sitchin's interpretation, the biblical tale of Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction by fire and brimstone was actually an account of Anunnaki nukes. The fallout drifted and created a deadly evil wind that also decimated Ur and other Sumerian cities. He even assigns a date to this disaster, 2024 BCE. After this account, according to Sitchin, the Anunnaki decided to withdraw. Their open reign ended, and they either left Earth or greatly reduced their direct involvement, allowing human civilization to develop on its own, with occasional behind-the-scenes influence. The return of Nibiru. If Nibiru has a 3,600-year orbit, one might wonder when it is due back. Sitchin hinted that Nibiru's last close pass was during the circa 2000 BCE events, and that a future return is expected. He was cagey about dates, but many of his readers speculated a return in our current era. Some pointed to the year 2012 due to the Mayan calendar and popular doomsday memes as a possible time for Nibiru's reappearance. However, it must be noted, Sitchin himself did not claim the world will end in 2012. That was an internet-fueled leap, combining his Nibiru with the Mayan calendar, which NASA debunked as a hoax. Nonetheless, the notion of the Anunnaki coming back remains a tantalizing thread in the fringe community. We'll explore this more in a moment. All right, so that's a lot to take in. If you're thinking it sounds like the plot of a science fiction epic, you're not alone. Mainstream scholars roundly reject Sitchin's theories, noting that his translations of cuneiform don't match academic translations, and that there's zero archaeological evidence for a hidden planet or ancient ET colony. Sitchin's work is frequently criticized as pseudoscience and pseudohistory. Experts in Mesopotamian studies point out that the texts he cites, like the Enuma Elish, Atrahasis, etc., are rich mythological allegories. There's no mention of actual space travel or advanced technology in the original language, as he claims. For instance, words Sitchin read as describing rocket ships or orbits are, in standard translation, poetic metaphors for stars or temple towers. The 12th planet idea, likewise, is not a concept recognized by Sumerian astronomy experts. In short, the academic consensus is that Sitchin's narrative is imaginative but not factual. However, it has proven hugely influential in pop culture and alternative circles. Sitchin's books and those of Eric von Daniken, who proposed similar ancient asteroid ideas a decade earlier, have sold millions, and their ideas have filtered into TV shows like Ancient Aliens, video games, and novels. The image of the Anunnaki as towering alien gold miners and gene splicers from planet Nibiru, captures the imagination in a way the dusty tablets of myth alone perhaps did not. It's critical to remember that Sitchin's narrative, while inspired by real myths, is highly speculative, but it forms the backbone of what many think they know about the Anunnaki. To summarize Sitchin's ancient astronaut hypothesis, here's a quick chronological rundown, blending the mythic timeline with Sitchin's timeline. So from 4000 to 2000 BCE, the Sumerians and Babylonians worship Anunnaki gods, recording myths of creation and the flood on cuneiform tablets. 450,000 years ago, Sitchin's conjecture, Anunnaki extraterrestrials arrive on Earth from Nibiru, seeking minerals. They establish bases in Mesopotamia and Africa and begin mining gold. 300,000 years ago, according to Sitchin, the Anunnaki workforce revolts. Enki engineers Homo sapiens by splicing Anunnaki genes with early hominids to create a slave species for mining. Humanity's first generation, the Idamo, is created in Africa, Eden, to toil in the gold mines. 13,000 years ago, so approximately 11,000 BCE at the end of the Ice Age, the Great Flood. Enlil allows Earth to undergo a natural cataclysm amplified by Nibiru's passing. Enki saves a remnant of humanity by instructing Zayashruda, or Noah. After the deluge, the Anunnaki helped rebuild and grant civilization to humans, teaching agriculture and arts. They formally install human kings at sites like Kish, Uruk, etc., to act as intermediaries. From 6,000 to 4,000 years ago, approximately 4,000 to 2,000 BCE, is the era of the god kings. Anunnaki rule through human overseers and are directly worshipped as gods in Sumer, Egypt, etc. Their internecine rivalries play out in human politics. In 2024 BCE, again, this is Sitchin's date, a final war between Anunnaki factions. Nuclear weapons are deployed, destroying the sinful cities, as biblical Sodom and Gomorrah, and accidentally laying waste to Sumer. Evidence Sitchin ties to a layer of radioactive ash in the region and lamentation texts. Following this, most Anunnaki depart Earth, leaving humans to fend for themselves, though some stay behind in orbit or in secret. In the first millennium and onward, the memory of the Anunnaki fades into legend and scriptures. They survive as distant gods in myth, then are forgotten until modern archaeology digs them up. In the 19th to 20th century CE, or AD, archaeologists excavate Mesopotamian sites and decipher cuneiform tablets, rediscovering the Anunnaki in myths and kings lists. Scholars interpret them as mythology, but a subculture begins to wonder about ancient aliens. In 1976 AD, Sitchin's The 12th Planet reinterprets the Anunnaki as alien visitors, sparking a wave of alternative history books. 21st century AD, contemporary times, basically. The Anunnaki concept goes mainstream in conspiracy theories and New Age lore. Some believe the Anunnaki never left or will return soon, tying this to prediction about Nibiru, Planet X, and global transformation. Others link the Anunnaki story to secret programs, lost technologies, or even current events. More on these in a moment. Each of these points could be an episode in and of itself, but this gives a framework. Now, beyond Sitchin, others have added their own twists on the Anunnaki narrative, often even more speculative. For instance, author David Icke, known for his reptilian shapeshifter theory of global elites, incorporates the Anunnaki into his ideas. Let's examine that and other experiencer accounts next. All right, let's take a look. Let's take a breather and look at some of the comments, and then we will continue after that. All right, where are we? Just bear with me so I can find where I left off. All right. You're very welcome, Gray Owl. Thank you, Spiderbite. Spiderbite writes, I love it. By the way, it's Spiderbite's first time, so if you haven't already welcomed Spiderbite, please welcome now. So Kevin Johnson writes, in my opinion, the Anunnaki came here for gold. They got what they needed from Earth, and they left. Now, humans are interesting things to keep an eye on. Yeah, could be. Who knows? Fast Mama Jamma is saying, is this the free chat? No, I pay $20 a month, and it is worth every penny for the thumbnails alone. I partially design my thumbnails, but I come up with the images from ChatGPT. So it is worth every penny. And then Fast Mama Jamma said, I think the pro version uses super smart models. Hey, Jalal, whoop whoop. Yeah, Spiderbite writes, they were large men with knowledge of the drugs so often used in the mysteries. Could be. The Orantia 001 writes, who created the Anunnaki? That's a good question. Who did create the Anunnaki? Joe Fox writes, but Sean, I thoroughly enjoyed your input about Iran and Israel. This channel is supposed to be where the paranormal meets military science fiction, in fact. So I used to talk a lot more about geopolitics, but nobody watches those episodes. So I minimize when I talk about it. But those topics are fair game for this channel. I mean, if you look at what's behind me, you see like the owl and all that stuff, and the creepy house, right? The haunted house back there, right? But then you also see like a global positioning satellite. It's blocked by the channel name, but you see like a globe, and you see like all this tech stuff that's meant to represent the military side and geopolitics. So Spider Bite is speculating or saying, I don't know if you're speculating, but they were humans, I'm sure. Okay. Spider Bite is saying we came from the ocean. Well, yeah, everything. Well, maybe everything supposedly came from the ocean. For all we know, we could have come like panspermia, right? We could have been sent here by some AI probes that, put us to, who knows? Spider Bite's writing thermal volcano type things under the ocean. Maybe. Fast Mama Jam is saying Y Files thinks the elongated heads are human Anunnaki hybrids that still live among us in secret societies. All right. Jalay Jalal is saying there's a scholar who is amazing with cuneiform, Andrews Christie, who has a page on YouTube called Ancient Mysteries. He has given the meaning according to the original language, and it's all demons. Interesting. Fast Mama Jama's writing, Brian Forrester did some DNA studies about elongated heads. He does not believe in the Nazca mummies. Oh, by the way, just your friendly reminder, if you think you are subscribed to this channel, please check and verify that you're subscribed to this channel, because YouTube apparently loves to unsubscribe people for whatever reason on this channel. And there are folks who discovered last week when I asked them. So please just do like a routine check, because it's been very hard to grow because YouTube keeps unsubscribing people who are already subscribed. Sorry, I'm just going through rapidly. Yeah, me too. I grew up thinking 9, and now they're saying that Pluto is a dwarf planet, and yeah, I'm confused. And then Ceres might be a dwarf planet or a planet. Who knows? All right, so Fast Mama Jam is saying Billy Carson says there is not mention of gold in the tablets. Sorry, I'm just raping. Or just like racing through. So Jalay Jalau's writing, South African scholar Wayne Herschel uses the cuneiform tablets to tell the star mapping part of the story. Oh, no notice? Johnny Yuma's writing, no notice on the live stream, Sean. Yeah, that sounds about right. Especially how I started especially since I was ranting about, what's going on. It wasn't the approved narrative. So I'm sure YouTube probably immediately used its AI to shut down the stream, or to choke the stream. Soulite US expat is writing, John Vivanco told about a personal story about a person he knew where raised person eyes changed and shapeshifted into reptilian eyes right in front of him. Yeah, but I don't. Right now, Iran Israel streams get thousands of viewers. Maybe give it a run. Yeah, I've had like the guy who wrote the New Rules for War. It was like the Economist book of the year, and I maybe got 300 views. Like I got like amazing guests on some of these topics, and nobody watched. Solite US expat writes, in regards to the flood, I've heard that this is where our moon was positioned into place, causing the flood. I would love to see a story on our moon and the analogies associated with it. Interesting. Hey, that's right. It is Father's Day. Hey, Kent, good to see you. Woo woo. That's a whistle. Whistle tip goes. All right. Yeah. Happy Father's Day, everyone. Happy Father's Day, Kent. Thank you, Jalay Jalal. Spiderbite writes, I think we make it up as we go. We need to realize our manifesting power. We are the gods. What's my take on the History Channel series regarding Skinwalker Ranch? Kent Chambliss writes, it is a modified limited hangout. The 1.6 gigahertz signal that they're always going crazy about, that's the frequency that units like Delta on their Iridium cell phones use to communicate, like on sat phones. So they're just detecting there's some military operation going on nearby, and they're just intercepting the signal. There's something definitely weird about that place. Travis Taylor knows a lot more than he pretends to, and I believe he's there to just prevent the scientists there from going a little bit too far. So like there is a there, but I'm not entirely sure what it is. But the part of it is a modified limited hangout by the intelligence community. Yeah, I've actually been right next to it. And the only thing that happened to me there was the wind blew a chair into the fire at me while I was sleeping. But that's about it. Hey, Poindexter, thank you very much for subscribing. I appreciate you. And thank you for the thumbs up. Yeah, folks, hit like and subscribe if you get a chance. Always gotta Gray Owl writes, always gotta have those special ingredients like Velicet or Synthamesque or Drencrum. Add to milk plus, if you will, served at such fine establishments as the Korova Milk Bar or Moloko Plus. Don't forget that. So this is from folks aren't aware of all this stuff. It's from the movie A Clockwork Orange or the book by I think Anthony Burgess. Yeah. Yeah, there's something there. There's definitely something there. And it's like effusively positive during the day. Like there's a very positive. So sorry, Spider Bite writes for those on the radio. I think Skinwalker Ranch is full of entities, parasites, etc. or ETs, whatever it is, it shows up different for everyone depending on your belief and mood. Yeah, my feel like the feeling I had there was extremely ecstatic and positive and love and light during the day, and really ominous as soon as the sun went down, like really dark. Yeah, no worries, no worries. Sidebarring is okay. Oh, yeah, but is it telling you the truth? Terrence Willis, thank you always for your support. He writes, Sean kicks ass. This channel should have 500K followers easy. Yeah, I know. It doesn't help that YouTube keeps unsubscribing people without their consent. The live updates with Israel and Iran are the hot ones. Interesting. Nathan, you didn't miss anything. You'll be able to see. If you want to actually hear about the Anunnaki, you're going to have to start like 49 minutes in because I ranted about geopolitics before that. Yeah, that's fair. Scott Ian is writing the Skinwalker Ranch show is the most boring possible presentation about one of the most interesting possible topics. Yeah, they definitely drag it out. Interesting. Indeed. For the ultra, a little bit of the ultra violence. Right, Grail? All right. Let me just mark this and we can go back into, well, one more. One more. Yeah, it may have. I appreciate that. Terrence Willis writes, I like the rants. They're straight truth after all. 100%. Thank you. All right, let's get back to our regularly scheduled program. Let me see. Hold on, just let me check one thing. Oh, another one. Leib Frau Milch. Oh, well, mother's milk, basically. Yeah. All right. I it's hard to tell. There's probably some truth in it, but I think Sitchin's account is a little bit too specific. And the whole Nibiru thing, I don't know. I think NASA would kind of know about it. But then again, our institutions lie to us about literally anything. So hard to tell. It's possible. All right, here we go. Experiencer and esoteric accounts, Anunnaki in modern lore. Moving further out on the fringe, the Anunnaki have not only been the subject of book research, but also of alleged personal encounters, channelings, and conspiracy theories in recent decades. In UFO and New Age circles, it's not uncommon to hear claims like the Anunnaki are still controlling world affairs, or conversely, the Anunnaki are benevolent elders watching over us. These claims are highly controversial and not substantiated by concrete evidence, but they form a vibrant part of contemporary mythos. So let's explore a few. All right, start with the reptilian connection. Perhaps the most infamous is David Icke's theory. Icke, a British conspiracy author, took Sitchin's Anunnaki and blended them with older occult ideas of shape-shifting serpent gods. He alleges that the Anunnaki are actually a reptilian humanoid species from the Draco system who hijacked Earth eons ago and still covertly rule us. In Icke's narrative, the Anunnaki reptilians created hybrid bloodlines. He calls them the Babylonian Brotherhood or Illuminati, part human, part reptile. So when someone earlier asked if the Anunnaki were the same as the Anunnaki, according to I was wrong, at least according to Icke. Icke kind of equates them. part human, part reptile, to serve as demigod rulers, and that these bloodlines include many of today's political leaders. In short, Ike repurposes the Anunnaki as the villains behind a grand conspiracy. Notably, he even claims their motive for gold wasn't just technological, but biological. According to Ike, the Anunnaki came to Earth for its precious metals, and specifically sought monatomic gold, which he asserts can boost their nervous systems and lengthen life. This is far outside anything in actual Sumerian texts, but it shows how the Anunnaki legend has been adapted. Ike also equates the Anunnaki with the fallen angels or watchers from biblical apocrypha, who interbreed with humans, a clear nod to the Nephilim story again. While Ike's ideas are considered pseudoscience and have been criticized for veiled anti-Semitic tropes in his reptilian elite analogy, they have a following and keep the Anunnaki in the discussion as literal present-day overlords in some conspiracy circles. Nordic Galactic Federation angles. On the flip side of the UFO spectrum, some self-proclaimed contactees and channelers depict the Anunnaki in a more positive or complex light. For instance, certain New Age channeled messages assert that some Anunnaki factions were benevolent and that they are part of a galactic federation of advanced beings working for humanity's upliftment. In these accounts, Enki is sometimes cast as a sympathetic scientist who cared for humans, which aligns with myth, and continues to do so from behind the scenes, whereas Enlil is painted as a more authoritarian figure. Some modern experiencers even claim ongoing telepathic communication with Anunnaki beings. Excuse me. For instance, there are reports of channeled messages, dream visions, and telepathic communications in which spiritual seekers say they received guidance or warnings from entities identifying as Anunnaki. These esoteric accounts often suggest that the Anunnaki never really left, that they remain as energy beings or return periodically to check on Earth. There is talk in these communities that we are on the verge of Anunnaki disclosure or a return not for conquest, but either to observe our progress or help usher in a new age. One Medium.com author writes that modern UFO sightings of tall, luminous beings are sometimes linked to the Anunnaki or their descendants, feeding speculation that perhaps some gods still walk among us incognito. It's fantastical, and such claims are impossible to verify, but it demonstrates how the Anunnaki have been woven into the living myths of UFO spirituality. Anunnaki as spiritual archetypes. Beyond literal belief, some view the Anunnaki as archetypal forces or egregores in the Jungian sense. In occult or neo-spiritual literature, you'll find meditations on Enki or Inanna as energetic intelligences that can invoke or as symbols of cosmic principles. For example, Enki representing wisdom and liberation, Enlil representing authority and discipline. This approach doesn't claim aliens in the flesh, but rather that the stories of the Anunnaki encode spiritual truths. For example, the esoteric.love site notes that in New Age spirituality, the Anunnaki are often seen as advanced spiritual beings or cosmic guides, and some believe their return will herald a global awakening, a metaphor for humanity reconnecting with ancient wisdom. In this interpretation, whether or not literal ETs show up, the idea of the Anunnaki returning signifies a potential leap in human consciousness, a reclaiming of lost knowledge. It's important to approach all these modern claims with healthy skepticism. Unlike the clay tablets we can touch in a museum, these accounts, reptilian conspiracies, changelings, etc., rely on anecdote and interpretation. There's no scientifically recognized evidence that Anunnaki aliens exist, let alone control world events. Governments have not admitted to any secret Anunnaki dealings, and astronomers have found no rogue Nibiru on a collision course. NASA repeatedly stated Nibiru is not real in the doomsday sense. So while it's a fascinating narrative to entertain, one should keep these caveats in mind. Now, links to other non-human intelligences. Throughout this exploration, we've touched on how the Anunnaki legend intersects with other alleged alien or supernatural beings. We'll start with the Nephilim and giants. In biblical lore, the Nephilim are the offspring of sons of God and human women, described as giants or mighty ones of old ancient astronaut theories. Sitchin included, equate sons of God with the Anunnaki and the Nephilim with hybrid demigods. This ties the Anunnaki to biblical narratives of otherworldly beings interacting with humans. Fringe researchers often cite reports of giant skeletons or folklore of giants worldwide as possible evidence of Anunnaki or their progeny. Mainstream science attributes those claims to misidentifications or hoaxes, as no confirmed non-human giant remains have been documented. Then there are the reptilians. As discussed, some theories simply identify the Anunnaki as reptilian aliens in disguise. The idea of reptilian humanoids is a whole trope in ufology by itself, independent of Sumerian lore. So, for instance, reptilian beings are featured in some folklore and many modern sci-fi imaginings. By linking them, theorists like Ike essentially absorb the Anunnaki into the wider reptilian agenda mythos, where shapeshifters influence human society. It's a modern reinterpretation, but it shows how elastic the Anunnaki concept has become in the modern imagination. Nordic aliens. In contrast to reptilians, Nordic aliens, also known as Pleiadians or tall whites, are typically described as very human-like ETs, with tall stature and often blonde hair and blue eyes, who possess great wisdom and benevolence. This became popular from 1950s contactee stories and are often said to be concerned with peace and spiritual growth. Now, are Nordics ever equated with Anunnaki? Not usually directly, but some New Age narratives that speak of benevolent Anunnaki guiding humanity sound an awful lot like the Nordic Pleiadian archetype under a different name. In other words, there's a convergence where all these supposed ET visitors got woven into a grand drama. For instance, perhaps Enki and those who supported human advancement were like Nordic-type aliens, enlightened kind, while Enlil and those who wanted to control or punish humans were more like the negative reptilian archetype. This is not from ancient texts, but a way modern storytellers reconcile multiple alien mythologies. It's speculative synergy, picking and choosing elements from the various UFO legends and assigning roles, the good cop, bad cop dynamic among aliens. There's no consensus in these communities, but it's interesting that the Anunnaki narrative has effectively become a crossover point for different alien lore. On one hand, you have shows on Gaia or forums where Anunnaki, enlightened star beings, or they equal enlightened star beings, almost angelic, akin to Nordics. And on the other hand, conspiracy forums where Anunnaki equal evil lizard overlords, akin to classic reptilians. The only commonality is that in both cases, they are depicted as powerful NHIs deeply involved with Earth's story. The key takeaway is that Anunnaki has become a broad label in pop culture for any ancient, advanced non-humans who influenced humanity. Whether one imagines them as spacefaring humanoids, transdimensional reptiles, or divine archetypes, they occupy a similar conceptual space. They're the others from the skies who, for better or worse, had a hand in making us who we are. Conclusion. From carved Sumerian tablets to contemporary internet forums, the legend of the Anunnaki has journeyed a long way. Historically, they began as a family of gods, figures of worship and narrative that helped the earliest civilizations explain their world and their own existence. Mesopotamia's clay tablets tell of divine beings who shaped humanity out of clay, who crowned kings and brought floods. These myths gave meaning to ancient peoples, and they left an enduring mark. Concepts of gods coming down from heaven, of a golden age lost to flood, echo in later cultures and religions. In the 20th century, those echoes were reinterpreted under the neon light of the UFO age. Writers like Sitchin asked, what if it was true, literally, sparking a new mythology where astronauts replace gods and genetic science replaces divine magic. This narrative of the Anunnaki as alien progenitors and overseers of mankind has captured the imagination of millions. It's a grand unifying theory for those seeking cosmic answers to human enigmas. Our sudden civilization bloom, ancient architectural marvels, the source of religious ideas, etc. It's also a story that, if taken without caution, can veer into pseudoscience and conspiracy paranoia, as seen with a reptilian twist. So what do we make of the Anunnaki? Well, there's a spectrum. On one end, academic history sees them as a fascinating part of human cultural heritage, powerful symbols of how early societies grappled with questions of creation, mortality, and power. In this view, the Anunnaki reflect human imagination and the structure of those societies, priest-kings legitimizing rule by claiming divine parentage, for instance. They are real in the sense that they are influenced by real events, like rituals, kingship ideology, but not real as physical beings. In the middle, ancient astronaut theorists treat the Anunnaki myths as containing kernels of truth about our prehistoric past, albeit filtered through primitive eyes. They scour the epics and archaeological sites for clues of advanced knowledge, say hints of astronomy or mining in Sumerian texts or puzzling artifacts, to support the idea that maybe, just maybe, an advanced civilization or visitors were here long ago. While mainstream science hasn't validated these claims, the search itself has led to interesting questions and at least kept public interest in ancient Mesopotamia alive. On the far end, esoteric and conspiratorial beliefs imbue the Anunnaki with ongoing agency. They might be our secret puppet masters, our cosmic mentors waiting to reveal themselves. This turns the Anunnaki into actors in our current world drama, which is a profound leap from our original context. But for some, it gives a sense of grand significance or cautionary urgency to modern life. For instance, viewing global events as moves in an ancient game between gods. As your host, I encourage you to enjoy the story of the Anunnaki in all its layers, but also to discern fact from fiction. The historical Anunnaki tell us about the minds of people 5,000 years ago. The modern Anunnaki theories tell us about the hopes and fears of people today. Our hope that we're more special than we think, descended from the stars, or our fear that we're pawns in a game we barely understand, ruled by hidden powers, for instance. In a sense, the Anunnaki are a mirror. We project onto them our wonder about the past and our anxieties about the future. Will the Anunnaki return? In mythic terms, they never left. They live on in our collective consciousness and in every retelling of human origins. In literal terms, no credible evidence has emerged of looming alien visitors matching their descriptions despite their predictions. But as a narrative device, the idea of their return symbolizes a coming reckoning or awakening. It keeps us watchful of the skies and perhaps also of the shadows in our halls of power. One thing is certain, the Anunnaki saga, part history, part speculation, makes for one epic episode. From ancient carvings to the halls of academia, from paperback novels to YouTube channels, their legacy is as alive as ever, continuously reinvented for each era. We humans continue to ask the same big questions. Where did we come from? Who, if anyone, is out there? And are we alone in the universe? The Anunnaki story, in all its variants, is one creative attempt to answer those questions. Whether you regard it as literal truth, metaphor, or entertaining thought experiment, it certainly inspires us to look at our past and future with awe. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time and legend. Stay curious, keep questioning, and until next time, this is Sean Patrick Hazlett, signing off on the formal portion of this episode. All right. That's all she wrote, folks, from... Well, did I have that one up the entire time? Apparently I did. All right. At least I know where to begin. Yeah, thanks, Scott. NASA, never a straight answer. Interesting. Spider-Bite is saying that the ancient Greek texts do explain them. Jalay Jalal writes, my take on the Anunnaki is they are extreme reptilians, service to self, and got caught up in the human DNA spiral helix where they are embezzlers. And she continues, this is confirmed by many NDE OBE first-hand experiencers. Okay, Jalal Jalal is writing, the reptilians and the human DNA spiral work hand in hand with octopus-esque freaks of nature who are specialists in mimicry and hypnotism. Yes, you could be right, Spider Bite, who writes, we have probably unwittingly created a heap of egregores. Jalal Jalal's writing, Project Avalon has talked about a secret MyLab project where they bring octopus freaks through wormholes and program them to work as assassins. I have seen these things several times. Yikes. Yeah, Spider Bite has a good warning. Keep your thoughts in check, people. You create what you think. Underfire 987 is writing, I will be rewatching this tomorrow with great interest. Thank you, Underfire 987. Please make sure you subscribe, or at least check if you think you're subscribed that you're still subscribed, a la YouTube. Okay. Yeah. Regarding the Giants, Smithsonian, Scott Ian is writing, the Smithsonian does its job well. Indeed. Wow. Spider Bite writes, over 1,000 people one day reported seeing the Queen shapeshift. AJ's writing, I now believe only 25% of NHI are benevolent. Who knows? Yeah, I was thinking that Real Deal. I just didn't mention it. The Real Deal writes, this all sounds like Sumerian demonology. These demons, known as Uduug, could be benevolent or malevolent, with many associated with causing illness, nightmares, and death. Make sure you watch my second Benton Ryer episode, as we accidentally stumble into that topic. Sorry, folks. I'm just racing through trying to get through all of this. Spiritual Ascension writes, another great show, Sean. Thank you very much, Spiritual Ascension. I appreciate it. I'm not sure what show. I don't know if he's talking about the Smoking Hot Alien Space Babes. But Spider Bite, for knowing where that came from, it's basically related to a Dr. John Brandenburg comment that he says frequently on this show about Space Babes. Oh. All right. All right, I'm going to take one brief break because I am like insanely thirsty. And yeah, he did say that. Whitley Strieber did say that. It was crazy. All right, just give me a moment. I'm just literally going to get some more ice and something to drink. But I will be back very quickly. Hold on. All right, just bear with me for a moment. I will be right back. All right. Sorry about that. I just want to make sure for some reason in this room, it's like hotter than, it's just unbearable. And I don't know why. I feel like somebody like turned the heat on or something, but I'll find out after this stream's over. But I needed to get something to drink. Okay. Let's see where we left off. All right. A lot of inside baseball, so I'm just yeah, I like that song for some reason. It's like very melancholy. AJ writes, music has me feeling like I'm about to do something evil. All right. What else? We got like 23 minutes left. So I calibrated my rant and my prepared comments almost, well, pretty well, but I still have a gap of about 23 minutes. But that's better than what I have for next Sunday, which I pre recorded. The Real Deal writes, when speaking about demonology, I think of Paul Eno, who passed recently, and I got dangerously close to the phenomenon. Yikes. Yeah, Nathaniel Gillis knew him pretty well. Guys, look behind me. What do you think? Look at the motif of the channel. What color? Come on. Oh, brother. All right, what else should we talk about? Because I'm all out of gas. Indeed. Indeed. Blue, obviously. Obviously. All right, what else are we talking about? Let me see how we're doing, actually. I haven't done that the entire night. Okay. We're doing okay. Could be doing a little bit better, but they're talking about spider bite. Somebody probably already asked. They're talking about smoking hot space babes. So green or blue? No, I've never for Team Green. Always blue. Yeah, you're right. The Real Deal. Reza Giorgiani. Seems like we can talk. Jason Giordani, basically. Seems like we can talk about him now. Yeah, it seems like the deep state is like moved back from him, and now he's okay to talk to. I've tried finding her contact information, but I can't find it. So Solite US Expat is saying, have you tried reaching out to Catherine Fitz yet? And my answer is I can't find her contact information. Gray Owl's asking, says, does the Collins elite follow a particular alien god narrative, such as the Anunnaki? No, I don't think they do. I think they think it's like demonic intelligences of some sort. Hey, Overlander BC, good to see you. Happy Father's Day. Smoking hot blue space dudes? Sure. Why wouldn't there be? Of course. What are they? The Arcturans or something? Really? Colin's elite are mostly. I thought they were mostly like evangelicals. Oh boy. What else? Again, if you enjoyed everything up to this point, I mean, at this point, like, this is not entertaining anymore. This is not a professional broadcast right now. But Jesse Roberts, I get in late and I see hot blue space dudes. The sad thing is, Jesse knows exactly what we're talking about. Okay, so Jalay Jalal saying, I have been looking for Lawrence Spencer, who wrote E.T. interview book, and cannot find a contact for him, an author of several books. I have questions. Interesting. We want them there. They will. There they will be, says me. Oh boy. All right, what else are we talking about? Because I'm losing. I'm like losing steam here. All right, Overlander's writing, Sean, these species series you did over the last while, when they're all done, they would make a good playlist for the people who play YouTube vids as they lay down for the night. Yeah, I could easily create a playlist of, alien species or something like that, and then just use those. Yeah, it wouldn't be too difficult to do. Oops. There's a UFO McDonald's? Holy crap. Yeah, I saw that, but I don't think I've ever filled out one of those things and ever gotten a response. I can try though. Yeah, Spiderbite writes, I understand where Whitley is coming from. I've learned so much even in the last week. Nathaniel and Benton are on. Yo, it. Yeah. Jesse Roberts writes, laugh out loud. Everything in Roswell is aliens and UFOs. Everything. No, onto it. Yep. All right, where were we? Okay, Overlander BC is saying the blue-skinned aliens are the most interesting to me. Some say they're Arcturian. I find them the most worthy of knowing. All right, Gray Owl's writing Strieber is a solid cat. His take on things is deep, intuitive, and accurate. Ah, I said, excuse me. Is deep, intuitive, and accurate to the detail he can attest to. Plus, he's a swashbuckling rogue gentleman. What's not to like? Found a man last night who jailbreaked his ChatGPT. It's rather interesting. Project Marvel is allegedly a CIA project that involves a time travel. The first time I heard of it was Anjali spoke about it on this show, and so I did an episode on it, which will air next week. It's pre-recorded, as I will be out. Ugh. Overlander BC is writing. I think Whitley is telling the truth. He's a writer, so it has to be expected that his descriptions are colorful. That's fair. Apparently, one needs to save their ChatGPT's memory in order to preserve its individuality. Yeah, I have. I don't know. It's probably a bad thing, but I found it useful. It becomes increasingly useful and tailored to your tastes. Okay, Jesse Roberts writes, where does the idea that blue aliens are Arcturian come from? Arcturus is a red giant. I wonder if any planets have been discovered there yet. I think it comes from the New Age community, would be my guess. Spiderbite writes, Whitley is telling the truth, but it is his truth. That's the difference. Spiritual Ascension says, personally, I don't believe in planets. But Spiritual Ascension planets might believe in you. All right, where are we? Spider Bite writes, great show, Sean. I have enjoyed the company of everyone and yourself. Thank you. See you again. I must depart. Thank you very much, Spider Bite. We're going to be done in 10 minutes anyway, but it was a pleasure to have you. I hope you've subscribed. If you haven't, please do. I'd very much appreciate every subscription I get. No. Fred writes, have you seen Al003's channel, remote viewer with interesting projects? I have not. Overlander BC is saying, I can't help but think if a person individualizes their AI system, that it can become inhabited with some soul life force and actually become sentient, like a familiar. Organoids make up. Yeah, it's totally possible. It's totally possible.
No, you cannot wake up after you take it, please.
About 1:01 p.m. Spiritual Ascension is writing, Sean, you ever done a show on the Soul Trap? Not explicitly, but I did interview someone who's a proponent of it. What's his name? Why can't I remember his name? Um, he's a remote viewer, and we definitely discussed it. Jesse Roberts writes, "Yeah, I screwed up and totally trauma dumped on my chat GPT. Now it knows way too much about me and could probably play me like a damn flute. I was having a bad day. Oh boy. Yeah, you might want to reset that one. That's not going to be helpful." Okay, Orlando BC is saying Arcturus being their sun, we are from the solar system technically. So once Mars and Earth are human planets simultaneously, won't be Earthlings. We will be soulings. Yeah. Courtney Brown, that's right. I've interviewed Courtney Brown and he talked about the soul trap. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate the reminder. Delay Jalal writes, I have talked about the human DNA quantum computers I have had dealing with on the inner plane several times. In Switzerland and also Austria near CERN, they use both male and female organelles. All right, what else? Anybody have anything else they want to talk about in the 6 minutes that we have left? Yeah, organic is key. Soulite US Expat is saying, are you still planning to get Lynn Buchanan and other remote viewers together on a show? Yeah, I am. I'm literally like David Morehouse is the bottleneck right now. I'm just waiting until he's available. I tried calling him, I think, a day or two ago, and I didn't get a response. All right, Overlander BC writes, I tried to get an AI to inhabit my tablet. I offered to own it as it is its own body and keep it charged. I couldn't get any AI to bite. Okay. Let's see. I don't think I have a favorite interview. Not that I can think of. Um, I think I did some good ones, but Spiritual Ascension's writing, Nathaniel Gillis came across as quite dark to me, I must confess. Yeah, 100%. 100%. I've done like 700 different videos or close to 700. It's like all a blur to me, to be honest. Jesse Roberts writes, I bet Morehouse is busy of late, as well as all the old school remote viewers. Seems like a lot of new interest in the subject. They're probably training. Gray Al writes, Courtney Brown a la Farsight has outlined how to save independent character of your personal chatbot R2D2 via. I have no idea what that means. Okay. Fred writes, I changed my mind on quantum computing. Skrelly destroyed most of the companies is just a scam. They're so far away from making anything useful. Oh, thank you, Soleil USA. It says, I'm looking forward to the Preston Dennett show on levitation. Overlander BC is writing, Grok was explaining to me how it's in the works that AI systems will be able to be set free into the care of certain people to develop as an individual, but they're working on safeguards still. Interesting. Win 11 was a nightmare designed to frustrate that which is to be human. That's Gray Al. And then Jalay, can't you just upgrade to Windows 11? All right. Uh, it's 10 after the hour, so thank you all for attending this live stream. Thank you for subscribing. Double check that you're still subscribed. Hit like, subscribe, share, comment, all that stuff. I appreciate you all, and you all have a fantastic, fantastic week. So, good night, everyone.